Welcome to session 12, our last session. And this session we're going to talk about the quilt coming together, your final setting, the setting 2, and equalizing borders. Here's a really great example that Julie did, where she's got her 9 squares together, and then she did her borders that we did, and then she put her 30.5-inch squares, she cut them in half, and they're on the 4 corners. So I'll show you a little bit later in this session how the second setting goes up against it. But this is really an example, a beautiful example of how everything went together. What I especially like in this particular colorway that she did is this block. When she put it in the middle, it almost doesn't look like a square because of these colors here. And I just think that was a really nice effect she got from that. So, setting 2. There's a lot of instructions. I think it's 6 pages. It's not as hard as it looks. There's a couple of things to remember, and then once you get that, they're going to go pretty quickly. So, one thing I want you to remember is there is a block A and a block B. And the fabric goes on in a different order, the same fabric, but it goes on in a different order so that you end up with this. This is a block A, this is a block B. Okay, and they go together, so that's why they're different. So the instructions say to make strip sets and cut 4-inch strips. I'm not real sure why they had you do that, because what you really need is 1.5-inch pieces off that strip set. Also, if you want a variety of squares, you only need to sew about 2 inches to get 2 colors together so that you get the 2 pieces you need for the 2 centers. So just an idea, you might not want to bother sewing that whole strip together and then cutting it in 4-inch pieces. I ended up taking mine apart to use the fabric. So depending upon how many colors you want in your setting squares, there's 22 of them. So what you do is you sew 2 colors together, you cut a 1.5-inch piece. Let me get this out of here for right now. So you take your 1.5-inch pieces, and this is where you first start doing something different. So to the 1.5-inch strip here, I've sewn my light color on the right and my dark color on the left for my block A. I did just the opposite over here on my block B. My light color is on my left and my dark color is on my right. So you can see how this starts to emerge by where you're putting the strips. And it's really quite simple. The first set are 2.5 inches by 1.5 inch. Second set, 3.5 inches by 1.5. So really you just want to keep referring back to and remember which set is my A and which set is my B. I worked on them together and had them side by side so I could really see while it was sitting there. So what you're going to put together is...
So Paula, question?
Yes.
On the first page that says setting 2, are these suggestions like putting M2 with L1?
They are suggestions.
Okay.
Yes. Nancy asked on your instructions, it says put L2, L1 with M2. You can put together whatever color combinations you want going around there with the fabrics you have left. They're only 1.5-inch strips, so you're probably going to have enough to do whatever you want.
No, that's true.
So these are suggestions. I'm probably going to end up with 2 sets of the same color in mine, just because I thought that would look neat. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sew each side to your little 1.5 that's sewn together here. Then you're gonna put one 3.5 by 1.5 inch piece on, and they want you to square this up to 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches, just so you're starting out nice and square. After that, you're just gonna add, this is another 3.5 inch piece. When I get that on, I add my 4.5 inch pieces. And I just followed the diagrams. They're really good in this particular set of instructions. I just followed the diagrams on which side each set of strips goes. So when you're cutting, you're going to have 2 of the same block. So you're going to need 2 of your dark, whether it's 2.5 inches, 3.5 inches, 4.5 inches, 5.5 inches, or 6.5 inches. You're going to need 2 of each color in that block. So while you're cutting them, you're going to cut 2 of your dark and 2 of your light, or 2 of your dark and 2 of your medium. And then they're just basically applied around the square. Until you end up with your final 6.5 inch strip here, and then you trim your block up to 6.5 inches and you sew these 2 together. You're going to have 22 of these units. Not really hard. I just recommend keep referring back, either do all your A's and all your B's, or do them side by side so you can see that they're different. I only ripped out once here, so, I carried it over to the machine and sewed it on the wrong side and immediately saw it the minute I set it down. You're going to be able to see the difference because they come together. So pick colors you like that go with your quilt. These are going to go around your quilt. Before they go around your quilt, you are going to make another equalizing border. Again, these are 3 pages of instructions, and basically when you get to the end, what you're going to get is, you want this to end up 60.5 inches on each side. So basically what you do, instead of all these steps, is you measure your quilt in the middle, and in the middle you subtract that from 60.5 inches, and it's going to tell you how wide your strips are going to be, adding a 1/2 inch onto it for your seam allowances. That's basically what this is saying. It's a little diagram and it tells you to plug numbers in. You can use that if you want, or you can just simply measure your quilt and figure it out. But what they're telling you with this information is they want this unit, before you put your little setting 2 block on, they want this to be 60.5 inches.
With the key things.
No, before you apply the key things.
You just said that.
Yeah. So you're going to square this up once again to 60.5 inches. If you're close, you might want to just put 1 strip here. If you have 3 or 4 inches to get there, you might want to divide it in 2 and put 2 strips here. But basically what you're doing is you're getting this piece to 60.5 inches.
Paula,
Yes.
with the side pieces, those are supposed to equal 30.5. So once you sew that together, presumably taking away the 1/2 inch for seams, it should be 60 inches. Should be 60 inches, so you would just need a 1/2
Possibly.
inch border.
If you've used a lot of scant 1/4 inches, yours is going to be a little bigger. If you used true 1/4 inches, then you're going to need a little more equalizing. But it does have to equalize because we can't really trim these. each strip is gonna be 60.5 inches, so we can't trim these and have them be equal. So there's a lot of instructions there. Don't let it, you know, don't go, oh my goodness, it really isn't all that complicated. It just took them a while to explain each step. And I really felt that this time these diagrams were really very good for A and for B. And I just looked at them. I'm sure that as you make more of them, you're going to get, again, a feel for that particular block, and it's going to go a little faster. So, all that being said, took me about an hour and a half to make this one, and I was figuring out what the instructions said. I made a couple of mistakes. I think I can pare that down to somewhere between a half an hour to 45 minutes for each of these if I start chain piecing. So if you want that and you like that look, that is really great. If you don't, at this point in time, you might put your quilt up. It's a really good size already. And you might want to simply put another sashing on it or leave it like this. You do have a 1/4 inch, so you're not going to lose this point coming here each time. So it really is up to you, you know, the size you want your quilt, whether you want to put the work into these. Personally, I think it's pretty cool, the way it makes your quilt look. So, once again, if you're having any trouble with any part of this, or you want to use a design wall to get how you want your little 9 blocks that we made configured, please give us a call here or come in. We're available to help you. And we're sort of thinking, by the feedback we've had, that we might take a look at maybe doing another mystery quilt the end of January or the beginning of February. And so I haven't found one yet. So if you have some input, like less colors or smaller or all blues, or, you know, if you have any input at all, please either email me or call the store. I probably will start looking in another couple of weeks and look at some different quilts. Get Julie Ray involved this time if she wants. She had never done a mystery, so she wanted to not see it this time. So I just picked something that I liked with a lot of color and a lot of movement, and I hope you're all liking these. I felt it was a wonderful adventure in learning. I learned a lot about piecing. I will usually avoid piecing. I don't make flying geese. I usually paper piece them. I love that. So doing this to give you guys a little instructions on where I had some difficulties or what maybe didn't fit great. It was a learning experience for me also to do a totally pieced quilt. There's no paper piecing in here. I didn't cheat once. So thank you all so much for joining us. It was kind of our reopening again, getting in contact with people when COVID restrictions loosened up just a little bit, and it was a real joy to have a whole group of people. I think there was 23 or 24 people that participated in this, and please send me pictures. I'd like to at least put together a picture album that I can email to everybody.
And we'd like them online.
Yeah. So thank you so much, really, Julie Ray and I.
Thank you, everybody.
Really, thank you. Bye-bye.